Chapter 406 starts where the previous one left off, with Nobunaga, Finks, and Phaeton, guided by Tajao, the vice boss of the Sha'a or Cha'er Mafia family, traversing what is revealed to be the gap separating the various sections of the Black Whale. While there, it is all but confirmed that Nobunaga is capable of conjuring a katana to act as a replacement in case his original one is lost. Phaeton's comment that it's just a replica implies that it's most likely neither as sharp nor as durable as his original one. Furthermore, Nobunaga's annoyance at the fact that he can't be seen carrying a goddamned sword to tier 2 implies that A. the process of conjuring one is conditional, e.g. the original one has to first be forcefully taken from him or destroyed, and or B. it takes a long time and effort for it to be conjured. Both its lower quality and inconvenient conjuration requirement would make sense, since Nobunaga is an enhancer. This may actually be the reason why Togashi designated him as being transmutation lean in his art exhibition from a few years back. As in, it's possible that what nudged his affinity in that particular direction was actually his tapping into conjuration and not transmutation. I have a whole series of videos on this, so feel free to take a look-see if you're interested. They then reach the outermost inner part of the ship, the area just behind its hull, i.e. the only place where Phaeton must not be allowed to enter again. While the ship is way too huge to incur any real damage from an individual's ability, a full-powered rising sun in here could very well put the ship in serious jeopardy. Tajao goes on to explain that the sewage system of the Black Whale is handled by them and the Shu-U, or G-U. Nobunaga continues to show off his nigh impeccable instincts and intuition by immediately coming to the conclusion that the rogue AE, or Hei-Lee, are most likely masquerading as subcontractors meant to do the actual dirty work. In so doing, they not only ensure consistent batches of fresh meat to grind levels, since they can advertise sanitation work to people whom no one will miss or ask any questions about when they inevitably do go missing, but also provide an easy way to dispose of the remains. Not wanting to part with the sword he had just created, Nobu decides to head back and investigate this new lead on his own, leaving Finks and Phaeton to venture to the second tier. Honestly, I love the fact that out of all the members, the two going up are the ones most likely to get into trouble the fastest. Can't wait. Oh yeah, and only then does Nobunaga, prompted by Finks, actually reveal what he knows of Yokotani's ability, revealing it to be a counteractive type which activates when he is attacked. That's a bit too simplistic, since anything from merely trespassing can serve to activate Hisatsu, but it gets the point across. Phaeton notes it should be alright as long as they are attacked first and act in self-defense. Considering Yokotani's ability is inspired by his occupation, he's a lawyer, and self-defense is a right recognized by the vast majority of judicial systems, if not all, Phaeton's hunch is almost certainly correct. We then cut to Hinrich's transmogrified transmitter, as it retakes its original form. If you'll recall, some chapters back, he and Nobu had infiltrated the AE hideout, but were promptly expelled from their domain by Yokotani's aforementioned ability. While Nobunaga was being thrown out, Hinrigh used the opportunity to regurgitate a transmitter, transformed into some sort of food via his biohazard ability, and hid it before Yokotani's conjured enforcers banished him from their hideout as well. The only reason I can think of why we'd focus on this now is to set up the AE locating the transmitter in the coming chapters. Following that, we cut to Hinrigh proper as he and Zakuro are discussing Lynch's whereabouts. Suddenly, an AE lackey interrupts them, bringing news that Lynch's body has been found. Unfortunate news, but very fortunate timing, in a way. While they're carrying her body away, Hinrigh and Zakuro begin discussing the exact circumstances around their encounter with Hisoka. Hinrigh quickly comes to the conclusion that Lynch must have realized the Hisoka in question was fake through her body and soul ability, and was promptly knocked out, followed quickly by Zakuro. Zakuro was then awoken by a Lynch that was now being manipulated by the fake Hisoka. After the now manipulated Lynch falsely confirmed to Sakura that the Hisoka in question was the real one in an effort to limit the scope of their inquiry when her body is inevitably discovered. She left and was promptly killed by the faker. As you can see, everything is on the mark except for the Lynch being manipulated part. As we know, Bono actually transformed into her, but since Hinrigh hasn't heard of anyone being capable of changing their size when transforming their appearance, this preconception does slightly throw off his deduction from being a full-on 10 out of 10. Nonetheless, since he does correctly conclude that the fake Hisoka is almost certainly a Phantom Troop member who acted on the assumption that the Mafia would aim to isolate Hisoka from them and transformed into him in an effort to be given access to the higher floors and continue his search there, I feel comfortable giving Hinrigh an outstanding 9 out of 10 for his reasoning skills. I have to deduct 1 since now they are expecting someone capable of manipulating other people, which could throw off their investigation and plan of attack later on. As a quick side note, the fact that Hinrigh has never encountered an end user capable of changing their size when they transform does make sense, since even Bono feels that his transformations are briefer proportionally to how shorter his new appearance is when compared to his real self. As an additional side note, since he is capable of changing appearances on the spot, along with being capable of accomplishing the rare feat of changing his size when he does so, paired with the fact that this isn't his only ability, means that Bono is quite the talented and versatile conjurer. Definitely more so than I've given him credit for up until now. We end this section with Hinrigh and Sakura swearing revenge on Lynch's killer, and preparing themselves for the possibility of going to war with both the Phantom Troop and the Shah if need be, since the two outlaw factions have formed something of an alliance. Hinrigh, my good man, scaling-wise, you are most likely Shadow Beast level or so. Both of your enforcers were absolutely fodderized by a single PT member. You're already at war with the AE. And now you're considering making enemies of both the Shah and the troop? My dude, I know you got codes and rules and your honor or whatever to worry about, but I'm positive there are less painful ways to see yourself and your entire organization utterly annihilated. Finally, we pan to Chrollo, who is attending 9th Prince Halkenberg's funeral procession. Not to pay his respects to the late young prince, but to find his ideal partner. As much as Hisoka would like for it to be, it's not him Chrollo has in mind. What Chrollo is doing is using the ability Kono Dial 6700, which he had stolen from one Narumi Mechite, to locate his ideal partner based on the criteria he's inputted into the conjured phone. The ability works by assigning a 6 to 20 digit number with more precise criteria, most likely corresponding to a higher number of digits, and then apparently allowing Chrollo to call them. What this exactly entails is unknown, but it's possible it works in a pseudo-coercive manner, similar to 12th Prince Momose's guardian spirit beast. As in, I can imagine the partner in question hearing a ringing in their head and being forced to follow the caller's instructions in case they choose to answer. I guess this is what happens when your villain origin story is not getting any matches on Tinder. The phone also seems to have separate ranges for determining the presence of the ideal partner and for actually ringing them, with the former being larger than the latter. It also has a limited number of call attempts that can be made in a day, but since Chrollo closes the phone before it can finish saying the number of calls left, means that either A, he is already familiar with the number, is keeping track and doesn't need to hear it, or B, that this is a restriction which either allows him to expand the range or further specify the criteria. Now, it would seem that Chrollo has been planning this heist for a while, as he's been using this ability to search for his ideal partner even when he was at Heaven's Arena, most likely using every opportunity when a large crowd is gathered to increase his chances. What Chrollo is looking for is probably an end user with an ability which he believes would allow him to steal the 3 sacred treasures belonging to the Kakin royal family. The sacred treasures in question are 1. The Seed Urn, which we know was responsible for endowing Succession War participants, i.e. the 14 princes, with seeds or eggs which would eventually mature into their guardian spirit beasts. 2. The Zen Buddha, which is responsible for watching over the succession war. All of its properties and functions are thus far unknown, but I feel comfortable in asserting that it is responsible for creating and maintaining the barrier around whatever area is designated as the proving grounds for a succession war. The Buddha sees to it that all unworthy successors that attempt to flee their responsibility are instead sacrificed to nourish the great tree of Kakin. In other words, I'm positive that those ethereal hands that killed 10th Prince Kacho belong to this thing, especially since its covered arms that look to be sealed are visually in focus. 3. The Divine Blade of Guidance, passed down to the next king and winner of the succession war. We know nothing about it, but the name implies that while the first 2 treasures facilitate the appointment of the next king to the throne, the blade is responsible for guiding the new ruler so that he or she may lead Kakin to even greater prosperity. Though blades are made to cut, so it could be something significantly darker, like the winner of the succession war needing to cut open the previous king in order to absorb his power or some such. Back to Chrollo, he determines that Kakin is almost certainly not only aware of their presence on the ship, but also the fact that they have ulterior motives apart from killing Hisoka. Considering Franklin literally confirmed to the Shah Consigliere Toku back in chapter 379 that they are on the boat to steal something, yeah, they know. Furthermore, he surmises that the treasures are most likely being kept together on the first tier, to serve as a focal point for the succession war ritual. Finally, since they are of such vital importance for Kakin's future prosperity, he suspects that they are kept under even greater security than the king himself. This has to be the case, since quite honestly, the king really isn't protected all that well, seemingly primarily relying on his GSB for protection in case of any Nen-aided assassination attempts. Finally, we get to the reason Chrollo is really after these treasures. In order to unlock the full potential of and evolve Skill Hunter, he needs to steal a national level treasure. This is interesting for 2 reasons. Firstly, it implies that Chrollo isn't capable of stealing just any ability, even if he does meet all the regular criteria, meaning that certain particularly rare and or powerful abilities are beyond his ability to steal at this stage. I'm really unsure what abilities Chrollo would consider as particularly rare and powerful. If we're talking rare, Neon Nostrada's ability to predict the future is probably as rare as abilities go, to such an extent where I wouldn't be surprised if it was one of a kind. If we're talking about particularly powerful abilities, Sun and Moon comes to mind, though I'd definitely say that Neon's lovely ghostwriter is much rarer than Sun and Moon is powerful. Secondly, Chrollo states that he needs those extremely rare and powerful abilities in order to take on Hisoka, claiming that the alternative plan is already in place, and that the spider will survive should he encounter Hisoka beforehand and die. He could just be pessimistic and a chronic over-prepper, but this really makes it seem like he believes his chances of victory against Hisoka are either equal to or less than the chances of defeat. Finally, as Halkenberg's funeral procession is underway, Chrollo dials the phone once more, and this time it informs him that the person he is trying to reach has been located, but is out of range for the ability to take effect. Chrollo implies that the person in question is located somewhere on the higher tiers, which of course means that he plans to use the procession to infiltrate tier 2, and then eventually make his way to tier 1. And that's chapter 406 done. Some parting observations here at the end. First of all, and I have nothing to base this on, but I have a feeling that Nobunaga, parting from Finks and Phaeton, will prove deadly for one or the other, and I'm leaning more towards Finks and or Phaeton. 2. The focal point Chrollo mentioned is almost certainly the huge room with the 14 pods, where the princes are to be placed upon their deaths. That, or it's very close by. 3. It's interesting to think about whether the whole ritual would be compromised if a treasure was stolen. The urn has already served its function, so it may not pose an immediate issue for this succession war if it got stolen. On a similar note, it would seem that the Blade of Divine Guidance will most likely become relevant after the war has ended. That leaves the Zen Buddha as the most obvious choice story-wise, since if it were to get stolen and its effect thus neutralized, the princess would once again be permitted to leave the proving grounds, that is the Black Whale number 1. Fourth, considering he's lost one fortune-telling ability in the form of Neon's lovely ghostwriter, it'd be interesting if Chrollo was on the market for a new future divining ability. The closest ability among the ones we know of that would fit the bill would be 4th Prince Terror Sandwich's ephemeral 10 seconds. There are other princes and characters whose abilities could prove beneficial to Chrollo, but the issue is that the vast majority of them are on tier 1. So unless Chrollo lowered the criteria to vastly increase the range of the phone's detection radius, it makes the most sense that his ideal partner is currently on tier 2, in attendance of Halkenberg's procession, right above him. The procession started on the 3rd tier, but will move on to the 2nd and finally the 1st. Now, this ideal partner could be anyone from a Zodiac to a Mafia member, but in my opinion, the most likely candidate is one of Morena's Doomsday flock. They have quite varied and highly specialized abilities, so one of them could end up being just what Chrollo's been looking for. Their hideout is somewhere on the 2nd tier, and they did say they plan to take advantage of Halk's procession, so both the timing and location also checks out. 5th, I had an idea as to where I thought Togashi was going with Chrollo's character and was prepared to make a short essay on it, but this chapter really threw me for a loop with regards to his characterization, so I'll save that video for another time. That's it. Mostly. What kind of ability do you think Chrollo's after? Will he encounter Hisoka in the meantime, or will he manage to steal the treasures beforehand? What will Skill Hunter be capable of once it has evolved? I'm very much interested in hearing your thoughts on any of these. On a more personal note, the channel is slowly approaching 5k subs, and I was thinking I'd want to do something special. My current ideas are either a scripted Q&A video, in other words, I'd pick some of your questions pertaining to theories, analyses, or whatever, and give my thoughts on them, or a much more freeform Q&A stream, though I've never streamed before, so I'm not sure how that would actually look like. If you've got any preferences and would actually be interested in seeing this, please feel free to give your thoughts down below. As always, thank you very much for watching, feedback is always appreciated. I'd very much like to thank Kamaswami for going the extra mile in supporting the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.